I was patrolling a rural area one night when I got a call about a strange animal that was attacking livestock. I made my way out to the area in question and found the creature in question. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It was a large, wolf-like creature, but it had glowing red eyes and was covered in strange, wiry fur. I remember feeling a shiver run down my spine as I stared at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. As I approached the creature, it let out a bone-chilling howl and vanished into thin air. I searched the area but found no trace of it. It was as if it had simply disappeared into the night. I couldn't believe what I had just witnessed. The next few days were a blur as I tried to make sense of what had happened. I spoke to local residents and farmers, hoping to find some explanation for the strange creature, but no one had information of this creature. But I wonder how, are they afraid to say a word about the creature? Curious, I scoured through books and online resources, looking for any information that could help me understand what I had seen, but again, I came up empty-handed. Months passed, and the memory of the creature faded into the back of my mind. But then, one night, I was patrolling the same rural area when I saw something moving in the distance. It was the same wolf-like creature that I had seen months earlier. I couldn't believe my eyes, and I immediately called for backup. As I approached the creature, it let out a deafening howl and lunged at me. I was able to dodge its attack and drew my gun, ready to defend myself. But just as I was about to fire, the creature vanished into thin air again. I couldn't believe it. How was it possible for something to just disappear like that? After that encounter, I knew that I had to do something. I couldn't just let this creature roam free, attacking livestock and potentially harming humans. I did more research and spoke to experts in the field of animal control, hoping to find some way to capture or contain the creature. But all my efforts were in vain. The creature remained elusive and continued to terrorize the rural community. In the end, I was left with no choice but to accept that some things are simply beyond our understanding. The creature remains a mystery to this day, and I can only hope that it doesn't pose a threat to anyone else in the future. Whenever I talk about the creature, other retired officers nod in understanding. If as they know something I don't understand, maybe they had all seen things during their careers that defied explanation, and they knew that sometimes the truth was stranger than fiction. I'm a police officer from Chicago. I remember one time when I was called to investigate reports of strange creatures lurking around an old abandoned house. As I walked up to the front porch, I saw something move in the shadows. It was a humanoid figure, but it was distorted and seemed to be made of shadows. I drew my gun and approached it, but it vanished before my eyes. I searched the area but found nothing. It was the strangest thing I have ever seen. As I stood there, trying to make sense of what I had just witnessed, my mind raced with possibilities. Was it a trick of the light, a figment of my imagination, or was it something else entirely? I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just encountered something truly supernatural. I decided to search the abandoned house, hoping to find some clues as to what was going on. As I made my way through the dark and dusty interior, I felt a sense of unease creeping over me. The air was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the creaking of old floorboards and the rustling of unseen creatures in the shadows. Suddenly, I heard a loud banging noise coming from upstairs. I drew my gun and cautiously climbed the stairs, ready for whatever awaited me. As I reached the top of the stairs, I saw a figure moving in the shadows. It was the same shadowy humanoid that I had seen outside, and it seemed to be beckoning me forward. Despite my better judgment, I approached the figure, feeling drawn to it in some inexplicable way. As I got closer, the figure began to take on a more solid form, and I could see that it was a man in a long, dark coat. He had a strange look in his eyes, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was not quite human. I asked him who he was and what he was doing there, but he simply smiled and vanished into thin air. I searched the room but found no sign of him or any other creature. It was as if he had never been there at all. As I left the abandoned house, I couldn't help but feel that I had just scratched the surface of something much deeper and more sinister than I had ever imagined. The experience had left me shaken to my core, and I knew that I would never be the same again. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself obsessing over the strange creature that I had encountered. I scoured old police records and newspaper articles, hoping to find some clue as to what it could be, but nothing turned up. In the end, I was left with more questions than answers. What had I seen that night, and why was it so intent on drawing me into its strange, shadowy world? The mystery would haunt me for years to come, a constant reminder of the strange and inexplicable forces that exist just beyond our understanding. Sergeant Mark and Private James were on a mission to eliminate a strange creature that had been spotted near the outskirts of their base. The creature was said to be highly dangerous, with razor-sharp claws and an insatiable hunger for flesh. The two soldiers were armed with rifles and grenades, and they set out early in the morning, moving cautiously through the dense forest. They walked for hours, scanning the trees and the ground for any sign of the creature. Suddenly, they heard a rustling in the bushes ahead. Mark signaled for James to stay back, and he advanced slowly, rifle at the ready. As he drew closer, he saw a dark shape moving in the undergrowth. Without warning, the creature sprang out of the bushes, roaring and slashing with its claws. Mark fired his rifle, but the bullet seemed to have no effect. The creature was too fast, too strong. James rushed forward, throwing a grenade at the creature's feet. The explosion rocked the forest, and the creature stumbled back, injured but still alive. Mark and James circled around the creature, firing their rifles in unison. The creature howled in pain and fury, but they kept shooting until it finally fell to the ground, motionless. Panting and exhausted, Mark and James approached the creature's body, their rifles still trained on it. But as they got closer, they realized that something was wrong. The creature's skin was melting, dissolving into a pool of goo. "Damn it," Mark muttered. "It's some kind of shapeshifter. We were shooting at nothing but an illusion." James shook his head in disbelief. "What do we do now, Sarge?" Mark sighed, looking around at the empty forest. "We report back to base, tell them what happened, and hope they can send a team with better weapons to finish the job." With a sense of disappointment and frustration, the two soldiers turned and began the long trek back to their base, knowing that they had come so close to completing their mission, only to be thwarted by an unknown enemy. Mark and James reported back to base, telling their superiors about their encounter with the shape-shifting creature. They were relieved to hear that the team of specialized hunters with advanced weaponry was already on the way. 2 days later, the team arrived, consisting of a dozen seasoned soldiers armed with high-tech rifles and explosives. Mark and James were eager to join the team, but their superiors ordered them to stay behind and monitor the situation from the base. The specialized hunters headed out into the forest, tracking the creature's movements and searching for any sign of its lair. They were led by a grizzled veteran named Captain Reynolds, who had a reputation for taking down some of the most dangerous creatures. The team moved quickly and efficiently, using their advanced equipment to detect the creature's trail and identify its weaknesses. They set up traps and ambushes, luring the creature into a deadly game of cat and mouse. It was a long and grueling battle, lasting several days and nights. The creature was cunning and elusive, always staying one step ahead of the hunters. But Captain Reynolds and his team were determined to succeed, knowing that the creature posed a grave threat to the safety of nearby soldiers. Finally, on the 5th day, the hunters cornered the creature in a rocky ravine. It was a fierce and brutal fight, with the creature using its shape-shifting abilities to try to confuse and outmaneuver the hunters. But Captain Reynolds and his team were well prepared, using their high-tech weapons and explosives to inflict heavy damage on the creature. The battle raged on for hours, until finally, the creature let out a final roar and collapsed to the ground, dead. Mark and James, watching from the base, felt the surge of pride and relief as they saw the hunters emerge from the forest, carrying the creature's body. They had succeeded where they had failed, and eliminated the creature. In the days that followed, the hunters were interviewed by FBI agency and each soldier was warned not to talk about this. They were told that it was a sick bear. Strangely, the creature's body vanished in thin air and no one knows what happened to the creature's remains. But Sergeant Mark is convinced that FBI agents retrieved the body and they had covered up the mission. Nothing was said on the news and no one was talking in the base either.